invited to do the same thing. We're invited to do charity out of the box, non-conforming charity. As a church, we can't keep doing what everyone else is doing. Why? Simply because it's not good enough. It is good. Everyone else is doing good work. All these charities are doing excellent work that is much needed, but it's not good enough because we have to bring some values, Christian values to it that are not currently present. And I want to talk to you about this from a Christian standpoint and from a medical standpoint. From a Christian standpoint, when it came to being at the refugee camps, there were really three sequential reasons why the refugees, Syrian refugees in particular, really opened up. One is because they are being driven out of their country by their own people of the same religion, and they're asked to leave. And then in the most heinous and crazy ways, to the point that one of the refugees was sharing a story, and he said he owned a tourism company, a tourism bus company, and he used to transport people back from Syria into Saudi Arabia to do the pilgrimage. And on his way back with his bus, with the pilgrims, with the bus full of pilgrims going back from Saudi to Syria, he was stopped by an ISIS checkpoint. They made him and everyone dressed in white get off the bus in the middle of the desert. They took the bus and left him stranded. And he was like, these are our own people doing this to us. And he's talking to me, he's like, is this Islam to you? Is this how you're supposed to be treated? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, he's like, you're not Muslim? I said, no, I'm not. And then he looked at me and then he smiled, he said, and then he looked around the room and he saw there's like all the other, his friends are still there. He's like, I'll talk to you later. And he just left. To give life is not just to heal. Christ, the Christian point, the Christian standpoint of mission, of charity, is not just about healing. It's also about giving Christ. What does that mean? That means you have to give hope. This is a picture of Abu Nepal. He came with us to Athens with a group from the church, and they were visiting some of the refugee families. And the people welcomed him with open arms because all of a sudden, yes, they're being driven out of their own people, and then all of a sudden they come to Europe and they're welcomed with open arms. These are the Christians that they used to tell us about, that they are bad and they do this and they do that. These are the ones who are actually opening up the homes for us, and Arab countries have closed their doors shut. So they start to open up. All they needed to do on this trip for us is to see a priest. It was as if the doors of heaven had just opened in front of them. So I want to take this point, and I'm going to, like I was telling you about, the first point of being a Christian charity is that we are to give Christ. I'm going to talk about 4 points here. So number one, to give Christ. The oneness, one community, all of us, the love that we have to share, and the hope that we have to give. This woman, as you can see, she grabbed Abuna. She's like, this is the first day that Abuna went to the camp. She saw him. She's like, you're a man of God. Let me show you what our living conditions are like. She grabbed him and she's running back to the tents. And Abuna's talking to her about hope. And she's like, hope what? Come look at how we're living. And Abuna starts sharing with her about Moses. He was very strategic about this. He wanted to start somewhere where there's common ground. So he started Moses talking about the Red Sea, how when Moses parted the Red Sea, and like when they first got to the Red Sea, it seemed like all the doors were shut and the Egyptians are behind them and the Red Sea is in front of them. And all hope was gone, but then all of a sudden God gave Moses a way and he opened the Red Sea for them and they were saved. And you could see all the people looking at Abuna, they were just waiting to cling to any glimpse of hope. And honestly, at that point, Abuna could have just dropped the mic and had a standing ovation and it would have been done. Because all these people were not leaving him alone. He ended up leaving. We got there at 7 in the morning that day. He ended up leaving around 8 or 9 without eating lunch, without eating dinner, because every family wanted to take him and a group and show them their tent and welcome them and give them tea and give them food and tell them their story. It was really something unique. So it was all about giving hope. And as you can see, on the first day, this girl, Mona, she asked Abuna to bless her. She wasn't Christian, she wasn't anything. She was like, can you pray for me and bless me? And Abuna blessed her with oil. Not great photography skills here, cut Abuna's face out. But third day in the camp, Abuna says, I have a crazy idea. And we sit down together, and I was like, Abuna, what's your crazy idea? He's like, I want to show the Jesus movie in a refugee camp. I'm like, Abuna, there are like ISIS terrorist cells. There's like all sorts of stuff happening inside the camp. Are you sure you want to do that? He's like, yes, I want to show the Jesus movie inside the camp. So we go, we rent a projector and we go set it up, and all the people come like, oh, we're going to watch a movie. You set up a projector in the middle of a camp. These people have nothing to do every day, every night. So all of a sudden you're going to show them a movie. Everybody's going to come out of their tent. What movie are you guys going to show us? Everyone's like, just wait until you see. And then I'm like, God, please, if this is my last day on earth. And this is just not like, this is a group of like 15 of us. Everyone is like, yes, excited, but like your knees are shaking and you're like, what's going to happen? I've never prayed the Akbaya in my life entirely in one day as much as I did at the So Abuna sets up the movie. In the beginning, a couple of guys are like wondering what is this, and a couple of people like end up leaving. But then more people start coming, and you see more people talking in the background, and you start coming. And I love this picture very much because it shows a Syrian refugee lady wrapped up in her garment, just looking at the face of Christ. And after the movie, so many people came up and they talked to Abuna and they talked to him, and they went into their tents and they brought their own Bibles. They're like, we are not Christian, but look, we have these Bibles because we've seen here something that is different than what we've been told. And we want to change that. And we're like, we want to get baptized. And everyone's like, hold your horses. I can't, well, I'm only here for 10 days. And people, no, we want to be baptized. And they were insisting, so many of them. This is another picture also. You can see the kids looking upon the crucifix. I know that many of you are reluctant when it comes to refugees. I've heard all kinds of stories, and I've seen all sorts of sentiments from people. People say that they don't deserve help, or they are lying, or they're not Christian. We should be concerned with helping our own kind first. I've heard it all, and I'll be honest with you. I've also seen it. I've seen a lot of it. I've seen a lot of hate, and I've seen a lot of manipulation and trying to beat the system to try to get more money. I've seen refugees do all kinds of crazy stuff. I had one guy say that if the roles were reversed, that if the Europeans were the refugees to the Arab countries would have killed them at the border. He said we would have slit their throats, and he wasn't joking. A lot of them come from environments that only teach hate, but we come from an environment that teaches us something different. And I feel like as a Coptic church, that first of all, we do speak the language. We have a burden that we can serve in this capacity a lot more than any other church can. Language is a problem and culture is a problem. I've seen American churches go in there and give out Bibles and talk to people, but they couldn't connect. And then one Coptic man, one Coptic priest with 10, 15 nobodies all show up, and all of a sudden you're developing real relationships because people can connect with you. They have the same culture and they have the same language at least. I want to shift gears a little bit and still talk to you about Christ, giving Christ to people as a component of charity through a different organization. There's a ship, if you've ever heard of it, called Mercy Ship. It is a coastal hospital. It's a hospital ship that serves coastal countries in Africa, and it stays at each country for about 8 months before it moves on to the next one. They have currently about 450 volunteers of all different kinds. They have doctors, they have cooks, they have families, so they have 450 volunteers, and a lot of these volunteers are married men and women, and they have their kids. So what do you do when you're on a ship for months or years and you have kids that you need to educate? Well, they figured out a solution. Let's ask for volunteer teachers. And they brought teachers on the ship to teach the kids of the volunteers. They have volunteer cooks and volunteer accountants, volunteer barbers to cut the hair. They have volunteer galore. And then everyone on the ship stays anywhere between 2 months, and the most I've seen was 30 years. There was a surgeon who's been there for 30 years. But it's interesting because the concept itself, obviously the concept is beautiful. It has problems, just like any other thing would have problems, but the most beautiful thing is that they did put Christ in the center. Prayer before work was the first thing. Any time before you started in a dental clinic or an OR, they have 3 operating rooms and 80 hospital beds for patients. And any time before you started your day, you prayed and you did praise and worship. And you did it African style with the drums and everybody singing, patients and volunteers and everyone along. They invited Christ to be the center of attention from the very beginning. There was also one day, there was a patient who was in a very critical condition, and he was coding. And then they gave a message on a loudspeaker, and he said, everyone, just whatever you're doing right now, drop whatever you're doing, go join the next group of people that you see in front of you, if you know them or you don't know them, and just pray together for this person. And then you would see people just drop, go, a circle of 5, circle of 7. Each one would say a prayer out loud. They would all hold hands and pray sincerely, and then they would disperse back and go to their jobs, whatever they were doing. And then another announcement would come on the intercom to give you an update. Can you imagine if in our hospitals we did that today? In our clinics, we actually put prayer first. We put Christ first. What would that do to us? And what would that do to our patients? So, this is about giving Christ. This is a picture of the dental team in front of the ship on the first, it was like a 1-week party for some people who are just getting onto the ship.